The Vortex and Mysticism by Xus Casal. Author's Preface. It was late in the afternoon, and I was reclining on an old but comfy sofa, staring at my 5-year-old daughter's attempt to draw herself in a sketchbook. I remember the thought that her passion for arts was probably my small genetic contribution to her amazing personality. After a while, I realized she was silently sobbing. "What's the matter, sweetheart? Why are you crying?" She did not even take her eyes off her crayons and responded, "I don't want to get old, die, and go to heaven. Because when we go to heaven, we do not come back." For a few seconds, I remained astonished by the words of my little girl. On the surface, she was merely a kid scribbling on paper. But inside, she was pondering about the most profound philosophical question: the meaning of life. I stood up and sat beside her. I told her, "That's going to be in a far future. First you have to become a lady, then a woman, then maybe a mum, then an aunt, and then a grandma." "Why do we have to grow old?" she asked back. "Well," I said, "that's what every living thing does. See the tiny seeds? They grow into a plant, then into a tree, and then the tree gives its fruit. The fruit gives new seed. It's the circle of life." She looked at me, waiting for an honest answer. "Do we come back from heaven?" What could I say? She wanted sincerity, and I had dozens of theological and empirical ways to reply to that. But at the end of the day, what did I possibly know? I said, "That's what most people believe, that we will come back." She stared at me with an inquisitive grin, and then, with a reassured gesture, returned to her drawing. This was probably the most profound conversation I have ever had with a kid. Curiously enough, those were the kind of questions I asked myself at her age. Why are we here? What happens when we die? Why do we grow old? Is the adult world lying to me? Questions that never crossed my friends' and classmates' minds. On the contrary, they used to laugh at me and tell me I tend to overthink everything, to which I responded that they do not think at all. Why live a pointless life? Is life pointless, by the way? My friends were comfortable with, "I don't know, I don't care." I certainly was not. I was experiencing my own version of Buddha's first encounter with sickness, aging, and death. I was very young, maybe 5 or 6 years old, when I began to have my first experiences with the spiritual realm. I was raised in a very humble family. As a matter of fact, my stepfather rescued my mother and me from the streets. We first lived in a shelter house with no electricity, having to light candles every night. Then we rented a flat with no luxuries, no television, or even a frame for my bed. There were hundreds of mosquitoes, and even today, my ears still have mice bites from those days. We often walked for hours from that recondite building to my grandmother's home to get some charity from her in the form of food or money. We also frequented the Catholic food bank nearby. There was not much to do at night. I always laid down and, when the lights were off, heard my mother pray to God, like a child talks to her father. She often thanked him for the day, asked him to talk to her, and to protect me. And in the morning, during our breakfast, she would read me a story from the Bible. Adam and Eve, the Great Flood, David and Goliath, and back then, one of my favorites, Samson and Delilah. She did not know much about theology. She did not attend any religious organization. She simply had a Bible and prayed to God in the best way she could. Back then, I did not give it too much thought, but thinking retrospectively, miracles were our daily basis. Sometimes we dreamed similar dreams and told each other about them in the morning. Oftentimes, while having dinner, I felt the peaceful presence of something similar to a hand stroking my hair, although there was nobody else in the kitchen. There were times I had nightmares, or creepy sounds from upstairs kept me awake. Those times I copied my mother and, closing my eyes, asked God to protect me. Then those sounds stopped right away. My mother would pray for anything she needed and then receive it miraculously. I especially recall the time when she needed a washing machine. She had a very convincing conversation with the Creator about why she needed this specific appliance. In a matter of seconds, right after she finished her prayer, the neighbor knocked the door. Coincidentally, she had just bought a new washing machine and did not know what to do with the old one. So my mum received exactly what she was asking for that very same day. Similarly, our clothes and livelihood were always covered. One day, my mother and I had the same vision. We were standing at the entrance of the kitchen, and right at the corner, there we saw a flash of light descending like lightning from the ceiling, and then returning in the form of a burning arrow. At first I thought I had imagined it, but then I saw her just as shocked as I was. Then we asked each other, "What was that?" With the course of time, my mother prospered enough to have a small but well-equipped home of her own, with big screen TVs, all types of electronic devices, and even her own car. Although she decided to embrace a Christian faith, eventually she stopped praying, and the visible miracles ceased. By the age of 12, I had already finished reading the Bible a few times, and I was especially curious about its content. I had important theological questions that required serious answers, and no one but me was willing to go that route. I knew for a fact that the Bible was a Jewish book, written by and for Jews mostly. But I also learned there were other faiths out there, and other religious books in the world. There were different ways to have a relationship with the Creator of the world. Was my Jewish faith correct? Or was it merely one among many others? I began to read and inquire about the holy books of other faiths. Those who knew about my path thought I was a heretic. The secular, those who self-identified as normal, did not even care about it. They did not even understand why I cared about God at all. He must be a myth after all. Those who do not know remain oblivious, but those who have tasted authentic waters of spirituality are forever marked. Even if they no longer drink from them, the thirst never leaves the soul. As the ancients said, "Those born of the wind go where the wind goes, but they do not know where it leads. And although the path does not seem to end, we keep walking it." I learned about Protestant and Catholic Christianity, and read the so-called Fathers of the Church. I even became a musician in some evangelical churches, although I have always felt disconnected from their theology. It did not resonate with me and did not have the answers I was looking for. In addition to that, it even contradicted and went against the most basic fundamentals I had learned from the Jewish Bible itself. After all, whether they like it or not, Christians follow a Jewish Bible. I read the Book of Mormon and engaged in friendly conversations with members of the Watchtower organization. Yes, I know. While normal people tend to shun every type of door-to-door missionary, I enjoyed debating them and learning from the outcome. I came to know about Neoplatonism, read Gnostic literature, and learned modern Gnosticism from a Gnostic master. Their Aramaic terminology, which I had previously learned in Judaism and Kabbalah, felt very familiar and kind of heartwarming as well. It seemed like all those teachings and philosophies, despite their deviations, had all emerged from a unique common source, as in the story of the Tower of Babel, which I do not take to mean a split of literal languages, but about the world religions. People do not understand each other because they speak different spiritual languages, some of which became really messed up with time, but they all emerged from an original source, the attempt to reach heaven through human effort. When I was 23, I learned the philosophies of Buddhism and Hinduism. Hinduism is a large variety of ancient philosophies and religions that emerged in India, and some of their ideas felt quite familiar, which is of no surprise because even the book of the Zohar already acknowledged that Jewish mysticism and Hindu mysticism share a common source. As per the Zohar, the faith of Abraham spread eastward and eventually evolved into many of those Eastern religions. There was this Theravada monk I loved to talk with. It was by that time that I had traveled to Thailand and met the woman who became my first wife. Back then, she was a mainstream Buddhist. She later changed. And although I never interfered with her beliefs, I did reject her veneration of ghosts and statues. I did not have all my answers figured out yet, and my beliefs were all messed up. But I knew for certain that if there is a God, he must necessarily be one, not many. Statues, superstitious amulets, and external entities were totally foreign in my spiritual path. In fact, my journey in Buddhism led me deeper into Judaism, not without first satisfying my curiosity about different forms of Islam, Hermeticism, and New Age philosophy. In addition, I spent about 15 years taking notes and learning from university scholars about first-century religious history, the importance of critical analysis, and Jewish Chassidut. As a child, I had a very pure and naive relationship with the Creator. As an adult, I simply wanted to find the truth. I questioned everything and everyone. I knew there was a truth to find, and I searched for it, transcending again and again my own paradigms. Like a very stereotyped Gemini, I learned a bit of every field but specialized in Judaism, which I came to consider my native tongue. Eventually, I walked my own path, the path of mysticism. Judaism is still my religion, if someone asks me. However, the way I perceive God and the way I understand spirituality are totally different from mainstream organized religion. My studies opened the door to a world full of colors, and my personal experiences influenced the way I understood life. I decided to walk a path without a path, letting myself be guided, hundreds of times abandoning beliefs that did not make sense anymore, and embracing new paradigms, nurturing not only my brain with information, but also my soul with experiences, and my heart with good deeds, failing many times, and then learning from mistakes. As the saying goes, the ground on which you fall is the same ground on which you have to lean to get up. People, religious or not, have so much prejudice toward that which is not their path, towards that which they do not understand. And so, talking plainly about my experiences or my relationship with the Creator has been difficult, nearly impossible. Thankfully, I am using this book as an escape route to let some of these ideas out, certainly not all of them. I do not need any authority's permission for it, because this is my outlook, not theirs. As the Tao Te Ching says, care about other people's approval, and you will be their prisoner. When I decided to write this book, I was immersed in a profound depression, feeling alone in the world, in darkness, in pain. I had experienced so much loss, so many rejections, heartbreaks, and treachery. I thought I could not bear to live any more. Thinking that I was soon going to die or to kill myself, I wanted to pass on some of my personal thoughts to future generations, to my daughter. But out of darkness comes light. And when I occupied myself in profound meditations for this book and clung to the higher consciousness, a part of me that was broken became healed. This book is in part about my journey, my life, my reality, and also about the meaning of our existence in this materialistic world. It's not about religion, but how through religion I came to understand the Creator. The sages and the philosopher Maimonides taught that someone who engages in the path of mysticism must, among other things, think by themselves. Although the teachings of a sage can lead you towards the path of enlightenment, experiencing God and mysticism is a personal journey. It is not something that someone can bring to you. It is not in heaven or on the other side of the sea. It is in your heart. And no one else but you can access the depths of your heart. It is a path of self-discovery. I have written several essays and commentaries, all of them based on Judaism, Chassidut, and Kabbalah. But this book is not like them. Rather, this is my life, an attempt, I'm not sure how successful it will be, to explain ideas that don't always make sense, which people think to understand but often do not. Therefore, be ready to accompany me on a journey of uncensored discourses which emerged from profound studies, unstructured spontaneous thoughts, uncommon biblical interpretations, personal testimonies, and cinematic references, combined with the words which the Maggid taught me, in an attempt to arrange and codify an abstract message that constantly runs through my head. The message is clear in my mind, although translating it into words is certainly a challenge. Is this one of those books that can be found in the self-help section of the library? I have shared some of these teachings with certain people, explaining how they helped me cope with depression, and they have labeled it as motivational material for self-improvement. I hope this is the case for you too. But most self-help gurus out there offer rainbows and butterflies, beautified words that swiftly slide into the reader's ears, with oversimplistic life solutions that mix half-truths with utterly false information. The reason is that they make tons of money with their books, speeches, and charismatic performances. That is certainly not what this book is all about. I do not teach to be selfish, or that you are your own God, I do not teach that by smiling and having positive thoughts, you will have everything in life and never suffer again. Everyone wants to hear that, but as I said, those are twisted truths. What I teach in this book can be summed up in one sentence. I want you to escape the wheel of fate that keeps you feeling miserable and have a meaningful relationship with the Creator by understanding the spiritual laws of the universe. I honestly pray this book does you good just as much as writing it has done me. Xus Casal.